Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today we're getting into something pretty massive.
Yeah, massive is definitely the right word for this one. I'm excited to be here.
So imagine you're looking at a $16 billion freight train, right? It's heavy, it's loaded with momentum, and it is just barreling down the tracks.
Right.
Once a machine of that size is in motion, once thousands of workers are deployed and giant machines are assembled, the concrete is flowing, you kind of expect the laws of physics to just take over.
You expect unstoppable forward progress. Yeah.
Exactly. Unstoppable. But today we're looking at a stack of fresh market intelligence reports and infrastructure briefings centered on the Hudson Tunnel Project.
Which is, it's a literal marvel of modern engineering.
Right. A $16 billion marvel happening right under the Hudson River, connecting New York and New Jersey. Our mission today is to figure out why this incredibly critical project is teetering on a financial cliff.
And what that chaos actually means for the businesses trying to build it.
Because here is the hook, and this is wild. Construction literally just resumed this week. We're talking the week of March 12, 2026, after this massive federal funding freeze.
Yeah, they just got back to work.
Yeah.
But officials are already warning that it could stop again, completely dead in its tracks within months.
Just a few months,
yeah.
Which is terrifying. So before we talk about the $16 billion being spent, I think we have to establish, why this project is so urgently needed right now.
We definitely do, because we're talking about replacing tunnels that opened way back in 1910.
Before the widespread use of commercial electricity.
Exactly. And the Northeast Corridor, which relies entirely on these two aging tubes, it carries more passenger rail traffic than any other corridor in the whole country.
So you've got commuter rail, you've got Amtrak, freight rail, all squeezing through this ancient bottleneck.
Yeah, and the structural age is a vulnerability on its own, but the real catastrophic blow happened over a decade ago.
During Hurricane Sandy.
Right. Hurricane Sandy flooded those 1910 tubes with just millions of gallons of salt water.
Which, I always used to think of this like driving a 116-year-old car on a cross-country road trip. The suspension is shot, the engine is sputtering.
That's a good way to look at it.
But the saltwater element, that's what makes it a ticking time bomb. Because you didn't just drive an old car, you basically soaked the engine block in salt water.
Yeah, it's a relentless, unseen chemical reaction. It's happening inside the tunnel walls right now.
Talk about that mechanism, because the reports go into it, and it's pretty brutal.
It's fascinating, but yeah, brutal. So concrete is porous, right?
Right.
When you flood it with salt water, these chloride ions penetrate deep into the concrete structure. They just keep going until they hit the reinforcing steel rebar that's hidden inside.
The structural skeleton, basically.
Exactly. And when steel rusts, it expands. It can swell up to 6 times its original volume.
Wait, 6 times?
Yeah, up to 6 times. So that internal expansion literally blows the concrete apart from the inside out.
Oh.
Structural engineers call it spalling. So the walls are actively pushing themselves apart.
Meaning you can't just, slap a patch of fresh cement over a crack and call it a day.
No, not at all. The degradation compounds every single year. It's eating away at the walls, the high voltage electrical systems, the track infrastructure, all of it.
And if those tunnels fail, if that reaction runs its course and they actually fail, you instantly sever the main economic artery of the East Coast.
The ripple effects would be catastrophic. You're talking massive supply chain disruptions, millions of people unable to commute. It would trigger a measurable drop in the national GDP.
So failure is mathematically not an option here.
It's not an option.
Which brings us to the $16 billion underground mega build that's currently in motion. Because the stakes are so high, massive action is already underway, despite all this funding whiplash.
The physical progress they've made is actually staggering.
Yeah. The briefings mentioned that in late 2025, they already completed the Tunnel Avenue Bridge and Utility Relocation Project.
Right. They essentially had to pick up and move existing city infrastructure just to clear a path for the heavy machinery.
And on the Manhattan side, they've already poured, 11,000 cubic yards of concrete?
Over 11,000, yeah. They're actively constructing the tunnel invert slab. That's the massive, heavily reinforced floor of the tunnel that will eventually support the weight of the trains.
Okay, and then over in North Bergen, New Jersey, they finished this massive access shaft. and I was reading about this in the sources, they used slurry walls.
Oh, the slurry walls. Yeah, that is such a brilliant civil engineering workaround.
Because they're dealing with really soft, unstable earth right near the river, right?
Exactly. When you dig a deep trench in soft soil with a high water table, the walls of the trench just want to immediately collapse inward.
Right, it's just mud.
Yeah. So to prevent that, as the excavators dig the dirt out, they simultaneously pump in this thick, engineered liquid clay. It's called bentonite slurry.
So they're filling the hole with liquid clay while they dig.
Yep. The sheer hydrostatic pressure of that heavy liquid clay is what holds the dirt walls open.
That is wild.
It really is. And once the trench is fully excavated, they lower these giant steel rebar cages directly into the liquid clay. Then they pump liquid concrete into the bottom of the trench.
Because the concrete is heavier than the slurry.
You got it. It displaces the clay, pushing it up and out the top while the concrete cures in place.
Leaving you with this impenetrable subterranean concrete fortress wall.
A literal fortress wall. And inside that fortress, right now, in March 2026, massive tunnel boring machine components are arriving.
TBMs.
Yeah, they're being assembled on site, and more parts are coming later this month. And these TBMs, they aren't just oversized drill bits.
No, they're like underground factories.
Exactly. They stretch hundreds of feet long, they chew through the bedrock, convey the crushed stone out the back, and use robotic arms to install the permanent concrete tunnel rings, all at the same time.
It's unbelievable. And to run an operation like that, you need an incredible array of specialized trades. TDM operators, concrete specialists, ventilation, fire suppression.
Electrical contractors, signal crews. It generates thousands of subcontracting opportunities.
Okay, so this is where I have a massive point of confusion, and I think anyone listening would too.
Let's hear it.
We have 11,000 cubic yards of concrete poured. We have subterranean fortress walls. Giant tunnel boring machines are literally arriving on site.
Right.
How does a project with this much sheer physical mass and momentum possibly just stop?
Well, that collision right there between physical momentum and bureaucratic reality, that is the defining crisis of modern American infrastructure.
It's the money freeze.
It's the money freeze. The Gateway Development Commission CEO, Tom Prendergast, he calls this the most urgent passenger rail project in the country.
Yeah.
But he's also the one warning that despite resuming work this week, it could halt again in months if federal money doesn't flow on schedule.
Because it relies on this incredibly fragile web of capital. You have federal grants, federal loans, and state funding from both New York and New Jersey.
All trying to sync up. And this uncertainty has spanned over a decade and multiple administrations.
Right, so let's talk about the mechanical bottleneck disrupting that web right now. And I want to make it explicitly clear to you listening, we're not endorsing or criticizing these federal spending reviews.
No, not at all.
We are just looking at them impartially as the mechanical cause of these current disbursement delays.
Exactly. So mechanically, the issue is the difference between a commitment and a disbursement.
Okay, break that down for us.
On paper, the federal government has committed billions of dollars to this project, but a commitment is really just a promise on a ledger.
Right.
Disbursement is the actual bureaucratic release of that cash into the project's bank account so the contractors can make payroll.
Which brings us to the recent DOGE efficiency push.
Right. The Department of Government Efficiency, along with some broader federal spending reviews, initiated these massive sweeping audits of federal spending.
And whenever you initiate an audit of that scale, the mechanics of the bureaucracy demand that you turn off the tap while you inspect the plumbing.
That is the mechanical reality. The efficiency reviews are designed to track where every dollar is going, so that halts the actual disbursement of funds.
The money is still committed, but the cash stops flowing to the job site.
Exactly. And this isn't just about the Hudson Tunnel. This affects all projects depending on the $131 billion in IIJA money, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
So highway expansions, bridge replacements, all of it is facing the exact same disbursement freeze.
Yep, it's a nationwide pipeline issue.
So let's connect that high-level federal policy down to the boots on the ground. Because what happens to actual businesses when billions of dollars get caught in bureaucratic limbo?
For a mid-market contractor, the risk is existential. It can literally bankrupt them.
Because you mobilize crews, you order raw materials, you sign subcontracts, and then the money stops.
Construction is built on incredibly thin margins and massive upfront capital outlay. When you win a federal bid, you go all in, assuming the federal disbursement will reimburse you on a strict 30-day billing cycle.
It's like being at a restaurant with a huge group of people.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Right, so you order the most expensive items on the menu. the lobster, the wagyu, because the richest person at the table promised to pay.
The federal government.
Exactly. But right before the check comes, your rich friend gets a notification that their bank accounts have been frozen for a security review.
The restaurant owner doesn't care about the security review. They're standing at your table demanding payment.
Right. And in infrastructure, those demands are carrying costs. You can't tell the equipment rental company, hey, the government is auditing its pipeline. I'll pay for this crane in 6 months.
No, they want their $50,000 this month, or they're repossessing the crane, and the labor dynamics are even worse.
How so?
Highly specialized tunnel boring operators are in massive demand globally. If you stop paying them because your federal funds are frozen, they won't wait around.
They'll just leave.
They'll be on a flight to a mining project in Australia by the end of the week. So you have to keep them on payroll, essentially paying them to stand by, just so you have a crew when the project unpauses.
Wow. So a mid-market contractor is just hemorrhaging cash every single day a worksite sits idle.
Hemorrhaging. Which is why the sources outline a very specific survival playbook.
Yeah, let's shift to that. Because these businesses have to adopt aggressive, highly specialized strategies just to survive the $131 billion infrastructure boom without going bankrupt.
There are 5 main rules in this playbook. The first is about payment terms, specifically negotiating stop work provisions.
So if payments are delayed 60 to 90 days, they can hit the eject button.
Exactly. The days of open-ended federal contracts are over. Smart contractors build clauses into their master contracts, so if they go 60 days without a paid invoice, they are legally authorized to suspend all work.
They can demobilize and walk away without facing breach of contract penalties.
All right. It legally protects them from being forced to build for free.
Which leads into the second rule, cash reserves. The playbook says maintaining 3 months of operating expenses is non-negotiable.
Especially for firms under $50 million in revenue, and 3 months of operating expenses for heavy civil construction. I mean, that is an astonishing amount of liquid cash.
Because normally they'd rely on a bank, right? A line of credit to float payroll.
Normally, yes. But banks read the news. When a massive federal funding freeze is announced, banks tighten their lending criteria or freeze credit lines entirely.
Because the government collateral is suddenly in question.
Exactly. So contractors need actual liquid cash in their own bank accounts to survive that 60-day window before they can legally hit the stop work button.
Okay, so the third strategy to generate that cash is diversification. They're advised to cap federal projects at 40% of their total backlog.
Right, federal contracts are lucrative, so it's tempting to take as many as you can get.
But the timing risks are too extreme.
So extreme. So by capping federal work at 40%, a firm ensures the other 60% of their revenue is in private sector or stable local municipal work.
Which usually pays on strict net 30 terms.
Yep. So if the federal tap turns off, the private sector cash flow keeps the lights on and the core staff paid.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, the fourth rule happens before a single shovel hits the dirt. Mobilization costs.
Ah, yes. Front-loading the bids.
The playbook advises contractors to front-load their bids so they get paid for moving equipment and crews before any pauses can happen. But how do you do that without auditors rejecting the bid?
It comes down to the schedule of values. That's the breakdown of thousands of individual line items and their costs.
Okay.
Historically, contractors might spread out the massive cost of mobilization like transporting a TBM and setting up cranes across the life of the project. It makes early bills look smaller.
But if you spread that cost out and the audit hits in month 2, you haven't recouped the millions you spent just getting the machines to the site.
Exactly. You're instantly in the red. So now, contractors are demanding that transportation, site prep, and initial leasing be fully paid out on the very first invoice.
Which government estimators scrutinize, I'm sure.
Oh, heavily. But smart contractors back it up with airtight logistical data. They prove the upfront cost is real, so they aren't left holding the bag if a pause happens on day 60.
Wow. Okay, and the final piece of the survival playbook is change order discipline.
Creating an airtight paper trail to recover delay costs.
Right, because in federal contracting, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. If an audit pauses the project and costs a contractor $100,000 in idle equipment fees, they can theoretically sue to recover it later.
But the burden of proof is absolute.
Absolute. So contractors are hiring dedicated project engineers whose sole job is to document idle time. Every single day of delay, every unused crane, every displaced worker, it's formally logged, photographed, and submitted in real time.
So synthesizing all of this, we have a catastrophic 116-year-old tunnel problem under the river. Saltwater chemistry is actively destroying the economic artery of the Northeast.
A ticking time bomb.
Right. And we have this brilliant $16 billion engineering solution currently in the ground slurry walls, concrete invert slabs, giant boring machines.
It's all happening.
But the survival of that physical machine is completely dictated by a precarious federal funding tightrope. A bureaucratic audit to inspect the plumbing can suddenly freeze cash flow.
And that forces the mid-market contractors actually swinging the hammers to act like risk management hedge funds.
Exactly. They have to hoard cash, diversify portfolios, and basically employ teams of lawyers just to survive building a train tunnel.
Which leaves us with a highly provocative reality to consider regarding the future of how our world gets built.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. What's the ultimate risk here?
If navigating the chaotic flow of federal infrastructure funding requires hoarding millions in liquid cash reserves and utilizing this aggressive level of risk mitigation, what happens to the market itself?
Do the mid-market firms just drop out?
Exactly. If brilliant mid-market engineering firms can simply no longer afford to take on the existential risk of a federal funding pause, they will stop bidding entirely. They get priced out of the risk.
No.
And if they get priced out, do we risk a future where only a handful of massive, monopolistic megacorporations are left? Companies with balance sheets large enough to survive the bureaucratic chaos.
So we consolidate all of our critical building capacity into just 2 or 3 mega firms.
Right. And if they face no real competition, what does that eventually do to the cost and the quality of America's future infrastructure?
That is a staggering thought. The unseen mechanics of a federal audit stopping a $16 billion machine in its tracks and quietly reshaping exactly who gets to build the world around us.
Definitely something to ponder.
Especially the next time you're sitting on a delayed train, right? Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been incredibly eye-opening. We will catch you next time.